Welcome in, everyone. I have really just the most amazing guest for me. I'm feeling so happy that Taha Ebrahimi was willing to come in and interview
I'm
with,
honored to be here.
with
Thank you
me.
for inviting me to this really cool studio in this floating boat, like very close to I-5.
Thank
It's really
you.
a cool experience. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm so delighted that you said yes to coming in and having a
How could I say no?
conversation. I want to show everyone this is how I have been introduced to Taha. She recently, I'm going to hold this a little closer. Well, actually, it was during COVID that the book actually came out, right?
It actually came out just last year, 2024, but I was
Oh,
working on it during COVID. Like this was actually a COVID project. I had a real day job, 9 to 5, when I
did
was like
you
making this
really?
one. Yeah. But it came out just last year.
Well, this book is so adorable. It delights me in so many ways. Taha
Oh,
has
thank you.
her own drawings in here, and this book is all about the street trees in the Seattle neighborhoods. And any of you watching know I love trees so much. And Taha, I am so curious what what inspired this project?
Oh my gosh, it's really a story. So, it was during COVID, and you remember how they shut down so many streets. It was kind of like in that way, sort of idyllic. Everyone would come out and be like walking at a certain time. So, I would take these really epic long walks between like neighborhoods, even. And if you remember, like during that time, the only way you could be social is if you met with someone outside. So,
Yeah.
often I would meet with friends and we'd go on these walks. And then after a while, I thought about how can I make this walk a little bit more interesting since I'm going by some of the same things all the time. And I've always been interested and in love with trees. But throughout my busy life, whether it was at school or at work, I never had a chance to really like stop and learn their names. It was just this thing that had always been there. And it had started when I was young. We had an empty lot next to our house that was overgrown with like laurels and cherry trees and firs and things like that.
And you grew up in this area, right?
Yes,
That's
right.
what I thought.
Yes. And this lot was on Roosevelt Way, which is
Oh,
where
wow. Okay.
I grew up. And all of the kids on that block, we all basically like grew up in that little area with we called it the jungle, even though it was just like a little bit of forest. But that always stuck with me. So during COVID, everything slowed down. There were no airplanes in the sky, no cars, and suddenly you had all this time where you weren't seeing people or obligated to do things. And I don't think it's a coincidence that during that slow time where it felt like someone had hit the pause button, that's when I finally looked around and I noticed that there were all these trees around me, street trees, you
Wow.
know?
Yeah.
And at that time, I didn't have a car. So I was living in Capitol Hill at that time. And, I didn't have access to like drive out to the mountains or something like that. But I noticed
Yeah.
that these trees were like right here. So I wanted to just originally just like learn the different names of them. And I'm kind of an amateur bird watcher too. And with birds, I think it's slightly easier because you know that certain birds are going to be in certain regions. So you can at least filter that out when you're
Yeah.
looking at the bird book. You're like, oh, that bird isn't supposed to be here. So I won't look at that one. I'll look at another one. Well, it's not that way with trees. So what I found out really quickly is trees from all over the world are all over the world. So, for in Seattle, for example, all of our street trees, less than 5% are actually native from this region.
That's pretty amazing.
Every other tree that you see that is growing around us, has been brought from somewhere else.
Wow.
Yeah. So they leave layers and layers of cultural history about why those trees are even here. And I worked at a data visualization company, so I'm very data obsessed in many ways. And the first thing I thought of was, let's see if there's a data set, a publicly available data set about the street trees. And sure enough, Seattle has one that goes back to 1950.
Wow.
So I looked at the data and I structured this book around showing folks where to find the widest diameter and the first recorded trees across 50 different genus. So I just wanted to share the experience that I had during COVID, which was really magical. I don't know why it's magical, but when you go to a tree and you're like, okay, yes, it does have this shape of leaf. Yes, that is the bark. And it's like you recognize it and you know what it is and you know where it came from. You're suddenly like connected to the earth it's planted in. And that was really an amazing experience for me. And also just like I was one of the privileged people who was working remotely during that time, which meant I was online all day long in my head, not really in the present moment. So these walks really did save me in many ways
Wow.
too, because the nature of taking these walks and looking for specific characteristics of trees like forces you to be in the present and to slow down in a way where you are actually identifying physical things in your world. And we take that for granted, but that doesn't really happen anymore. We spend
Yeah.
93% of our time indoors, in our heads. We forget about our bodies at computers and screens.
Yeah.
And it has since been scientifically shown, that being in nature, being near trees, being present, although we don't know why, has significant health benefits.
And you personally were noticing just how did you notice in, well, you've mentioned some. Did you notice, is there anything else that you can, I guess, expound on?
Well, like literally when I say it saved me, it did because I was going crazy by the end of the day being like on these Zoom calls and online all day long. I just felt like I had information overload. I wasn't able to remember certain things. It was just really unhealthy. So when I say like um it made me feel healthier and calmer. It was like a meditation in many ways. Like
Beautiful.
it was something I craved, it was necessary. If I didn't go out and do these things, these walks, I couldn't literally sleep at nighttime. So
Wow.
so when I started taking friends out on these walks and seeing that different kinds of people enjoyed these walks also, and plus when you go with somebody, you find yourself having a different kind of conversation with them when you're
Yeah.
talking about your physical place around you. You're like, oh, look at that tree, or oh, look at this tree. Literally, the conversation I would have with old familiar friends was completely different.
Wow.
Plus, your relationship with your community. So, like, people would see me with like a map, and and they would ask me, "What are you up to?" And then suddenly, when I would tell them about a tree, they would, open up and tell you the most intimate stories about their
Really?
relationships with trees. These are just neighbors.
Wow.
And
Oh, I love it.
I don't know if I mentioned I was born and raised in Seattle, so I thought I knew the city really well, but honestly, it was like falling through into another dimension when I was going on these walks and seeing these neighborhoods in a totally different way. And I was just always, it was like magic, It was just being enchanted by these places that I thought I knew, but until you're on your own 2 feet, looking for something as specific as like a blossom with five petals,
Wow.
like it becomes a very different thing. It becomes playful, and I think we've forgotten how to play. Oh, and I should rewind actually. So back to that story when I found the data set. So originally I had this one book that just had illustrations of tree characteristics in it, and that wasn't quite enough when you're alone. I found another book by the tree expert. His name is Arthur Lee Jacobson. He's written a book from the 80s called Trees of Seattle and has specific addresses of tree
Oh,
species. So
wow.
you can actually go and you know that it has been confirmed that this tree is a silver maple, for example. So you know you're seeing it. So in an effort to kind of combine the information in both of these books, that's how I started drawing those maps.
Wow.
So that's why I had these maps and I was walking around and I ended up making a ton of these maps, and it was just a fun COVID project. And then shockingly, it just kind of turned into a book. And
How did that become the book?
so I was posting things from my friends on social media. I was leading people on these walks. I was
I love
talking about
that.
my
That's so great.
process. Yeah, it was really like this playful thing. And then, friends were like, you should make a book. And I was like, haha, I think, that's not really realistic or whatever. And, I think it was during COVID was a special time because it felt like you could reach out and access anyone. I think because people had more free time. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know if I mentioned, but as soon as kind of like things started dying down with like the COVID epidemic, not dying down, but becoming a little bit more safe, I reached out to Arthur Lee Jacobson, the
Did
author
you
of that other book,
really?
and
Nice.
he was very generous, and he like welcomed me to his home, and we went on tree walks together. And I don't think in a normal world, maybe it would have happened, I don't know, but me having the time to even reach out or to think that he would respond, you know?
Yeah.
And that was how it was with this publishing company
Really.
also. My editor jokes, she was like, I was just looking through, you know, and there it is. And then it was just like one thing led to another, and suddenly it was this book that uh, kind of defies, I think, like a lot of genre. You know, it's not a picture book,
Yeah.
it's not a nature book, it's not a history book, but it kind of is all these things. And
Yeah.
originally I was like, okay, I'm gonna get this book is gonna get published, and that's awesome. I have this, you know, memento from COVID. And then maybe a couple of other people might buy it too. So you can imagine like my shock when it was like a Pacific Northwest bestseller. It turns out
So
there are a lot of people in Seattle
amazing.
into trees and looking for them. So,
Oh my gosh, I just love everything about this story and
oh, thanks.
how, yeah, and and I'm so curious. So, this was your experience, and all of this beauty came out of this COVID thing shutting down, and you really discovering how important it was to go on your walks. And it sounds like you are continuing with with these walks, right? That's
Totally.
my
So
understanding.
I'm following the river of this experience, just kind of trusting. I mean, it came out of nowhere, so I'm just going to kind of trust and see where it goes. And right now, I'm still offering, I'm now offering tree walks for the public. So
So
leading
great.
these walks, I did a couple last year after I put out the book, and it was just so cool meeting people, you know, first of all, in person and going on these events where we were getting to know each other in a different way. And I realized that in many ways, this is like a community building project too. I had no idea there were so many people interested in their natural environment. And lo and behold, I think it's kind of a zeitgeist thing right now with everything going on in the news, everything in the world. It's like people want to root and feel grounded in the places that they are, their local places.
Yeah.
And a lot of that I feel like has been lost. You know, in the old days, you know, it used to be that by the time you were speaking, you knew the names of all the plants around you, you know? And you can't have a relationship with a person unless you know their names. So of
Yeah,
course
that's
you,
a really good point. I
yeah,
love that you're bringing that up.
yeah. So knowing and identifying those plants, it gives you, I think, not just a relationship with where you live, but also a sense of confidence too, because you're not as scared of these things. I say that from a memory I had of like actually going to visit a school that was like elementary school kids, and I didn't know how they would react to trees. I didn't know if they would be interested or if this was boring, but
Yeah.
I guess I was shocked at how much kids are interested in trees and identifying things around them. And I was reminded of that because I was talking about confidence a second ago. I think there's something about higher self esteem when you feel like you know your area and you see things that other people don't. You feel a sense of true belonging that I think that we're all lacking in this very quickly, rapidly moving, uniform world.
Yeah, I agree. And you brought up something. I love how you said it. You were talking about how you feel more rooted and grounded into your
Yes.
community. And just on my YouTube channel a few days ago, I was talking about how trees and humans actually have so much in common.
Yes.
And we as humans need that grounding and rooting. And even though we don't physically root right into the ground like the trees do, but
Yeah.
I was talking about how they're encouraging us humans to do the same, to be grounded and rooted through them and to interact. And I love that you brought that up because it really ties in
They
to
connect
what I was
us.
just talking
The trees
about.
connect us to the world. And it's like,
Yeah.
if you think evolutionarily, it makes a lot of sense. They've said that, humans feel a sense of calm and well being when they're around trees.
Yeah.
It's kind of inexplicable, but evolutionarily, we literally grew up in trees.
So
You know,
true.
this is what happened. So of course, evolutionarily, we have come to be attracted to the patterns of the branches. That's just how we have evolved, right? So maybe we've lost the connection to why, but that is literally those that used to be our homes.
I love that you're bringing all of this up, and oh my word, Taha, it just, I love your,
Oh,
I love how
thanks.
you're growing with your seedling of, what started on this project and how it's growing and you're bringing community together. And will you tell me how can people find you to go on one of your walks?
Sure. You can sign up for my newsletter at my website. I realized after I made the URL for the website that, my name may not be easy to spell, but it is at tahaebrahimi.com.
And I'll put that in the liner
Oh,
notes.
thank you, thank you. You can also follow me on Instagram, a little bit easier. That one, my handle there is Trees with Taha. I always advertise my walks there. I hope to have
Awesome.
more regular monthly walks as time goes by. But yeah, I love hosting these walks, getting to know people, and frankly, having the excuse to research these neighborhoods because trees are absolutely interconnected with history. So I
Yeah.
have to talk about the history of what has happened in those areas and what those trees witnessed, what they've replaced, and what they face in the future as part of these tours. So doing that, also working on a second book proposal.
Really, I love hearing
Yeah,
that. Good for you.
thank
Congratulations.
you. I really believe that creativity is creativity and connection. Those things are the most powerful, important things in life. And the older I grow, the more I realize they are necessities, not optional. So yeah, I'm trying to follow, as I said, follow that path and see where it goes. Again, the book was a surprise, and I'm willing to see where else it leads to, as long as it feels good, which it does.
That is amazing. And I love everything that you've shared
Thank
and
you.
so grateful for the time that you've been willing
Thank you for
to spend to
inviting
come
me,
in
for
here.
finding me, reaching out. I love it when people reach out.
Oh, I was so delighted to actually meet you. I read a news article on Taha in my community newspaper.
I love that it was your
It
community
was my community
newspaper. Yeah.
newspaper, and they highlighted her. And I sat there. I was in my coffee shop right up the street that
Oh,
just opened, bringing community together. I was sitting in there, read your article, and I'm like, oh, I want to meet this woman. I was
oh,
so, and then it was within just, I would say, about a month's time.
that's awesome.
I I saw you on Instagram, and anyway,
I,
we share a love. Some of you watching may have heard my podcast that I did on my mother tree friend that I would go to, and I called her Josephine. She was so dear to me.
oh, the willow tree.
I actually found Taha on the same Instagram page for that garden.
That was how you found me? No way. So
I
that
went
is
and it
crazy. She
was,
wanted to introduce us then.
oh, it just got chills.
She introduced us. So there was an amazing willow tree at Strathga Gardens, which is a hidden garden, I
It
think.
is a hidden gem.
And
That's why I never want to say the name, but the
I
name is
know
out now. It's such a gem. It's
it
so hidden.
it is a hidden special
Oh,
garden. I
special.
visited it often in COVID and would sit under this specific willow tree that you're speaking of. It was a special tree, and it recently fell down in, what was it, a windstorm?
Yeah, there was some snow, and then it sounds like there was too much ice. It
Oh,
iced
that will
up, and
happen.
it just made it
Yeah,
too heavy. And she literally toppled over. She was at the top of this beautiful hill
yeah.
garden, toppled over, and is now, I mean, she looks pretty gorgeous in her fallen over state,
Oh, they
too.
haven't
Have you
removed.
noticed?
I hope they don't because I like it as
They
like, yeah,
I asked the owners, the
yeah.
caretakers and owners of the garden. I'm like, hey, what if you just tunnel underneath? And he's like, well, maybe we'll think about it. So who
Yeah,
knows?
that would be
She
wonderful.
is so beautiful, and I love that we have that connection. I hadn't even thought that she literally.
She
It's
introduced
because of
us.
her
Yeah. So I
that.
posted on my Instagram account saying farewell to this tree, and that's how you found
Well, and
trees
because
connect us, you know?
trees connect us.
Yeah.
It's a metaphor and literal. There is something here, and Oh my gosh, Taha, maybe I can have you back when your new book is out or even
I would
before
love that. Yeah.
and talk more about this, the progression of what our connection,
Yeah.
brings and how things continue to go for you. And I hadn't even really thought of that, who I considered my mother tree that I would go to
She
actually
she
was
left a note
the
before she left.
reason.
Yeah.
She did leave a note. She actually, I, I'm going to show you something. I got a gift from that willow tree. I feel like it was a gift from her through the caretakers. I went over to visit the caretakers the day after she had fallen over, and I met them, and I did a whole podcast about how
Oh wow.
beautiful they were. They took me in, we had tea, and we just talked for hours, and
I think
it
I
was
may know them.
amazing.
Yeah.
They're beautiful
Yeah.
people. And before they invited me for tea, I was going to leave the property, and
Sorry to interrupt you, but
it's
do you see what
okay.
I mean about people just like opening up and being
Yes.
intimate with people over a tree? As soon
Yes.
as you say the secret word, people are like, "Oh,
Yes.
you're like family. Come in," and like
That was
yeah.
precisely,
Anyway, sorry to
yes.
interrupt. I
No,
just had to say that.
I'm
Yeah.
so happy you did. So I'm gonna grab this little gem that I've now got on my altar.
What is this?
This is a little child's toy. I kid you not, and I don't know what era it's from.
Oh my God.
It was found down in the hole after Josephine, that I refer to as Josephine, she fell over. This child's toy was down in
Wow.
under where she was at in this hole that she left. And Jade, one of the caretakers, brought this to me and handed it to me. And she said, I want you to have this.
Wow.
And I went, what are the chances? Because Josephine was my mother tree. She gave me a child's toy.
That is
And this is
fascinating.
old. Like, I don't know. It looks like it could be even from the 50s, possibly 40s or 60s. It's very old.
For the people who are watching this, it has some letters, some faded letters on it. One is R, another is N, and M, and then there's like a faded like print of a
Penguin.
Penguin. Do any of those letters mean anything to you?
They do. Okay, so those of you who are here, many of you know that I recently changed my name legally. My name used to be Mary Lydia Ryan. There is an M, there is an R, and there is an N. I mean, that's pretty trippy. When I saw that, I'm like,
Wow.
really? Like, that might not mean anything, but it was
But
very,
maybe it
very,
does, like, and I
very
have a hard
significant
time
to me.
not
You
believing.
believe
Like,
in coincidences too, and
too many
synchronicities?
coincidences. Yeah, too many coincidences.
I'm with you on that. So, yeah, a little child's toy rattle I actually use
Wow.
in some of my musical transmissions that I'm making
Oh,
now.
that's so
And
cool.
that's a very old shamanic, having the rattle and working with those energies too is just, anyway, very symbolic,
Wow.
pretty amazing. So I am so grateful that Josephine, who I refer to as Josephine, and whatever you call her and whatever she is to you, I love that. It's really cool. You talk about you went and sat under that willow tree during COVID too. I was going up there all the time during COVID too. So we would be like, we didn't know each other then, but it was like we were sitting in each other's
That's what I love about, they're the last street trees and public trees. They're really the last public places we have where we connect with lots of people that are unlike us, or
Yeah.
like just across different spheres.
Yeah.
You may not even know them, but you are sharing the same backdrop with each other. You're making memories in front of that tree, and then when you meet that person, that's why that intimacy forms, because you've actually shared through space-time,
It's
these experiences.
absolutely true.
Yeah, and we're having less and less of those spaces that are public and shared are happening. Everyone's kind of going off into their fragmented echo chambers, so we're forgetting more and more how to share broad communities.
Well, I definitely see and feel. I'm a feeler. I feel into energies
Yeah.
really strongly, and I appreciate, because what you are doing, you're one person, and look at the difference you have made in the community. And
Thank
you're
you for saying
actually,
that.
I mean it with all my heart, because one person, it's really easy to think, oh, I'm just one person. We're not just one person. One person is so much, and what you're doing is a prime example
Oh.
of changing those ways. You're actually you're rewriting how our communities can interact with each other
Yeah,
by the work that you're
that is the
doing.
nicest thing anyone could
I
say.
mean
Thank
it.
you.
I mean it.
You know, you don't know, what you're doing, if it ever will have meaning or impact, but it's like sometimes you just even it doesn't matter. Maybe you're not meant to know the impact,
Yeah. Yeah.
You just have to do it anyway. I think it was Gandhi who said what you do, something along those lines. I'm probably butchering it. What you do will be meaningless, but you must do it anyway. I think it was something like that.
It's beautiful,
Yeah.
and you're doing it, and I thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being on the receiving, and like it's just it has to be like this book is nothing. It's nothing except for the community. And yeah, just thanks for reaching out. Again, I talked about COVID being this magical portal where people could connect, but I see the tendrils of it are reaching out
Yeah.
still. So
Yeah, I think they're gonna just keep growing too, actually. In my
well, I
heart,
hope
in
so.
my magical world and beliefs, I see that actually becoming the new norm. I really believe that we have that option to go that direction in our human evolution.
I certainly hope so. I certainly hope so. Anyway,
Taha, thank you so much.
thank
I'm
you.
going to leave in the liner notes where you can connect with Taha on all her social media. If you're in the area, or if not in the area and you fly into Seattle to come join some of her walks, please do. And
Or get the book and check out the
oh,
trees on your
please,
own. Like, seriously, you can go visit these trees. It's magical.
thank you for suggesting that. And Taha, you're awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for watching our conversation, and thank you for being here.
Is it Isobel?
Yeah.
Okay, I was kind of avoiding saying it in case like I was going to say it wrong, and I realized I should have asked before, but that was a wonderful interview. Thank you.
Thank you.